Hi everyone. Can someone confirm if my voice is audible? Okay. We'll wait for a couple of minutes and we'll get started. We'll get started in a couple of minutes. Okay, I think we can get started right now. Just everyone just confirm once again that you guys can see the PPT and hear my voice clearly. Okay, perfect. So welcome to today's session where we'll be discussing about how to get off-campus opportunities at top product-based companies and how to land an interview offer, how to crack the interview and how to negotiate and the whole process basically. And also on the screen right now, you have a QR code that you can scan in order to book a one-to-one trial session with me, let's say for 30, 40 minutes where we can discuss what you're facing right now. So we can scan this QR code. Let's get started. So I am a software engineer at Microsoft right now, and I'm working in iOS development, and I'm working for the SharePoint iOS mobile team as one of the primary developers. Previously, I was working at Deloitte in the data analyst domain, where I was working for top clients in order to provide business solutions towards them, specializing in specifically Power BI and Power Apps, so developing solutions in these tools. Apart from that, I also have some experience in competitive coding, and I worked as a part-time educator at CodeChef previously. Let's get started. I'm going to ask you a few questions just to understand what your experience right now. So I'm launching a poll. Can you guys fill up the poll there? You can see the triangle option on the bottom right corner there. Can you please fill it up so that I have an idea of whether you guys are working, whether you guys are students, and so on? You can see the bottom right corner. There's a triangle. You can just click on that and vote. Okay, it's kind of an even balance. I see okay, more students than working professionals now. Okay. Okay, it's pretty even. I'd say it's 60, 40, 60% students and around 40% working professionals. That's great. Okay. And can you guys fill up this as well, the next one? What is your target company right now? Like whether you're working towards product-based companies or startups or man type companies as well? Okay, everyone just went to man and one vote for product-based. Okay. Okay, perfect. So most of the people are targeting bank type companies right now, and a few people are targeting product-based startups as well, which is great. And just another poll before we get started. How soon are you guys planning to interview? For example, do you have a time frame right now where you're like, I want to interview at these man companies within, let's say, 4 months or 2 months? Based on the situation right now, what is your status? Okay, pretty even. Okay, got it. So people are looking for 4 to 6 months, and a few students, I think they would prefer like 1 year. I think more like final year students. Makes sense. Okay. So let's go on to the next one. Okay. So I would say what we'll cover in this session is we'll cover the off-campus process that is going on. We'll have a detailed discussion of each round, from how to land an interview call, how to apply to certain companies, how to prepare according to the company, because there are slight variations whether you're preparing for service-based products or fan companies. And we'll also look at a few resources, and we'll look for common questions as well. Let's get started. So typically what happens in an off-campus interview? Give me 1 second. Yeah. So basically what happens is, first you have to apply. So you can apply either through the company portal or through LinkedIn or through various ways. And the first thing that happens is you need to land an interview call. The company has to call you back. And this is normally done after your resume kind of goes through an ATS scanning, or a recruiter kind of manually reviews your resume and sees whether you're a good fit for the job description that they posted. Now, once that is done, in this, you get an interview call back. So in order to get an interview call at this early stage, a referral certainly helps in this stage. Then what happens is you get a recruiter phone call from some companies where the recruiter kind of chats with you regarding your preparation status, what is the time frame of the interview that you decide, and when to schedule the interviews. Or companies, let's say you apply for companies like Amazon or Microsoft. In these companies, you get an link. So what happens in this online assessment is that you have 2 to 3 questions of, let's say, medium level, where you have around an hour to solve it, and they're hosted on platforms like HackerOrt or Codility and these platforms, where you need to solve these assessments that they give. It is not a proctored assessment. It will mostly be a normal online assessment, competitive coding type of round there. So this happens. And other companies, instead of the online assessment, they can also have a preliminary technical round. For example, Google, however, after the recruiter chats with you, they schedule a session with one of their engineers and they call it the first technical round, where it's an elimination kind of round where you have 45 minutes where you chat face to face with the interviewer, where you solve around 2 to 3 data structure and algorithm questions. So it's either a preliminary technical round or an online assessment, but this stage is kind of the elimination stage, where this is the stage where they decide whether they want to move you forward to the next rounds or not. Then the face-to-face rounds happen. Now, the face-to-face rounds have different names in different companies. In Google, it's called the on-site rounds, because typically before COVID, they would actually invite you to the Google office in order to interview. And other companies are called by different names. But typically, all the MANC companies, you'll have 3 to 4 technical rounds, where each round would be of 45 minutes to 1 hour, where they test your data structure and algorithm skills, and they test how well you are at solving the problems, how well you are at communicating the problems, and how well can you code, among other things. After 3 to 4 face-to-face rounds, you'll get one HR round. Sometimes the HR round can be coupled within the technical rounds itself, maybe the last 10-15 minutes of the rounds. And then finally, after all these rounds, you get an offer. And that is the typical process. We'll go into detail of each company and how to prepare later, but this is the kind of general overview that happens across companies. Moving on to the next slide. First stage is getting the interview call, which is kind of the most important thing. For this purpose, because resume is kind of the first differentiator that you have from your end, you need to make sure that the resume is updated, structured. So a lot of people, they kind of put their picture on the resume, or they kind of, put their address and hobbies and these things. But these things are not differentiating your resume in any way. Because you're applying off campus and multiple thousands of people apply to a particular company, you need to figure out some differentiators that make your resume noticeable. So one thing you can do is you can use a good overlay for latex editor that you have to structure your resume. I added it in the resources tab as well, but mainly structure your resume in a really good format. Add links. Let's say you go to platforms like Lead Code or CodeChef or whatever platforms you've solved 200, 300 problems. Add a link to your file and mention that these are these many problems you've solved on these platforms. Let's say you're a working professional or you have had some internship experience. Mention quantifiable impact. Mention that you help the company improve its processes by X percentage. So if you have those quantifiable impact, right, the company also knows that you brought some quantifiable impact to the company, and they'll be more likely to notice your resume and move you to the next stage. In this stage, since a referral also helps, let's say you're texting someone on LinkedIn or somewhere else, you have someone from a particular company who you've identified, your dream company, and you want to apply to a certain role. Before asking for a referral, remember a few things. Avoid just sending them a high text because 90% of the cases you won't get a response back. So what you do is you send the job ID, the particular job ID, make sure that the job ID is relevant to the role that you're applying for. Because I also get a lot of things where people are giving me links of 3 years, 4 years experience, but they're freshers. So make sure that the job link and the job ID that you're sending is in relevance to the role that you're applying for. Given your say, let's say you're a student, you apply for internship. Let's say you're a working professional with 1 year of experience, apply for those roles that have 1 year of experience. Identify the roles, send the job links, and a couple of lines why you think you would be a good fit for the role, attach your resume and send it over. So this kind of maximizes the chances of getting a reply back and getting a referral. Also remember that in some companies, if you already applied for a certain job role, after applying, you cannot ask for a referral. So referral has to be done before you apply for a certain job role. So before you go to the company site and apply, send the mail to the person that, you know what, this is my resume. These are 2 lines why I'm a good fit. This is the job link and job ID, can you give me a referral for this post? So do that. And also this is by applying to the company site and getting a referral. There are other ways of getting an interview call. So most different companies, they do have flagship contests. For example, let's say TCS hosts their own flagship coding contest called Code Vita. Infosys has their own Hack with Infi. Google, if you want to get through Google through a development route, they also have something called Google Summer of Code. If you want to try Microsoft's Aspire or Engage program, there are those opportunities as well. So what you need to do is, all these different companies have various ways of applying. One is through the company portal itself. Second is by getting a referral. Third is by applying to certain coding competitions that they have. Uber, for example, for the internship program, they have something called STAR, if I remember correctly. They have the STAR program to hire people. And Microsoft hires interns to their Aspire or Engage program. Google has a Summer of Code. Google also posts separate opportunities through hackathons and stuff. So keep an eye out for all these competitions. Let's say even for internships, let's say you want an internship at Codeagon, because like Codeagon was one for, high paying internship and these contests. So keep an eye out for those things. I would say that moving on, this is for getting an interview call basically. Next, the main stage is, let's say you get a call back from the recruiter. So once you get a call back, you need to decide what is the time frame that you choose for interviewing. Some people say that they want to interview immediately and they go forward. Other people, what they do is they ask for time. They say that, you know what, give me 2 months time, let me prepare and let me schedule my interviews after a couple of months. So that also makes total sense. What you need to understand that in this stage, once you get an interview call, you need to also focus on communication and how you present your solution to the interviewer, because that is one of the main parts. Solving a problem and optimizing is anyway one of the parts of the interview that everyone practices, but not many people, understand that communication plays a major role. For example, most of the companies, bank companies, they have a separate rubric for grading how well the candidate can communicate their solutions to the interviewer. And also, I would suggest that pay close attention to time and space complexities. Let's say, for example, you're using standard templates, like let's say you use STL and C++. Understand the details of the implementation. Let's say you're using sets. So internally, you know that sets use self-balancing trees. So whenever you use an operation like extracting something from a set or put something in a set, when you extract, it's log n because you use self-balancing trees. So you need to understand the internal workings of STL or collections if you use Python or the libraries. Don't just rely on libraries and forget about the time complexity part, because that is important. And also, practice solving majorly medium problems, because 90% of the companies that you apply for, be it Google, Microsoft, Amazon, or anything, they focus on medium problems. Like 90% of the time you get medium problems in the interview, and also have a timer when you solve a particular problem. Because in an ideal interview, you have 45 minutes where you're supposed to solve 2 to 3, medium level problems. So each problem you have to solve within like 20 minutes, where you have to discuss with the interviewer, like, brainstorm with the interviewer, code it and optimize it also. So keep an eye of the timing as well. Also, I would say that don't jump directly into coding a question once you see a problem. Let's take the most famous example, lead code problem 001, which is called twosome, right? It means that you have a list of integers and you need to find out 2 integers from that list that sum up to a given target. Some people directly jump into the n square brute force solution here, but instead of going to the brute force solution, first discuss with the interviewer, try to identify the constraints. For example, if some of you guys are doing competitive coding, you know that it is guaranteed that the constraints are given. It says n is less than equal to 10 to the power of 5. This array will not exceed this limit. But in actual production code, you have no guarantee that the input that you're giving will be valid. So confirm with the interviewer what are the constraints of the input. Ask the interviewer what to do if, let's say, you receive an invalid input. Let's say you have an empty array. So what are you supposed to return in that case? So identify the edge cases, identify the constraints, and once you have a solution in mind and you get the go ahead from the interviewer, code that solution out and by yourself dry run it in front of the interviewer with a particular example and tell him that, you know what, this is the edge case of your solution. Because if you're at that level where you can identify edge cases or breaking constraints for your own code and optimize it without intervention from the interviewer, it kind of increases your chances. So remember to ask clarifying questions, identify edge cases and constraints, and also try to identify test cases where your code breaks, or add test cases while you're discussing, so that the chances of you. Keep a keen eye on code quality as well, because when you practice on these coding platforms, the main thing that you do, you focus on getting an accepted verdict. You don't really think whether or not the solution that you code, is it readable, is it maintainable, do you have meaningful variable names, do you modularize functions. These things don't matter much in case of coding competitions, but in an actual interview where one of the rubrics they evaluate is how well you can code, you need to keep these things in mind, like modularize into functions, write comments, have meaningful variable names, have tests, and have all these things. I would also say that there is one other thing you need to note. Let's say in man companies, when you interview, there is also a certain cooldown period. So what that means is that, let's say you interview for Google. So what is the Google process? First, you apply through your resume, and then let's say the recruiter calls you back, and the recruiter normally has a discussion with you. Normally in Google, the recruiter might also ask you, 2 to 3 data structure related questions on the call, on the initial call itself. Then after that call happens, the recruiter will schedule a 45-minute technical round with the Google engineer, which is called the first technical round that you will face. They'll also send you a bunch of material to prepare also, like, these data structure and algorithms, trees, graphs, DP, and all these things. But mainly the first technical round is your elimination round, so as to speak, where you have 45 minutes where you have to solve 2 medium questions there. After you solve it and you get the go ahead from that interviewer, then you move on to the on-site rounds. You have 4 on-site rounds, which basically means that these 4 rounds will be 45 minutes of 2 to 3 questions each, similar to the previous round. They might ask slightly harder questions, but it falls under the medium umbrella itself, where you solve these medium questions, you optimize it, you communicate your solutions. And after all these 4, rounds get over, then you can have a HR round also, and then you go to the next stage. In Google, they internally use a system to evaluate the candidates. They don't tell you what is the feedback, but I think reading online is more like they have a system called strong hire, lean hire, etc. So strong hire is basically when you solve the question completely and you also get, you can communicate your solutions well. So the interviewer strongly thinks that you should be hired. So your goal is to communicate the solution in a great way and also optimize it in a great way so that you get the highest evaluation from the interviewer in those rounds. Now, after these 4 on-site rounds get over and the HR round gets over, in Google, you have something called a hiring committee, where the recruiter kind of puts together a packet for you, where the packet contains your interview feedback so far, and they have a committee that sits and discusses whether you should be hired and the salary and negotiations there. Now, if we look at other companies, let's say, what is the process in Microsoft? In Microsoft, what happens is that starting you apply through the same thing, through the company portal or let's say LinkedIn, then you get a recruiter call back. Now you have an online assessment. After the online assessment, in the online assessment, you have 2 to 3, again, competitive coding, medium level questions where you have to solve it there on platforms like HackerEarth or Codility or whatever the coding platform is. Then after you get shortlisted, very similar to like all the man companies kind of have a similar process where you have 3 to 4 technical rounds again. After you solve 3 to 4 technical rounds, in each of these rounds, again, they emphasize on communicating and discussing with the interviewer and solving the problems. You have a HR round, and then you have a HR or a senior manager round, and then you move on to the offer stage. So it's very similar. Amazon is kind of very similar to the 2 things I mentioned. You apply, you get an OA link, you solve the OA, again, the same thing. Also remember that when an interview, let's say you solve a problem and you know only the brute force solution for that particular problem you're solving. In that case, it is fine to go ahead and code the brute force solution so that you have something on paper. At the end of the day, in order to put forward a case for you to get hired, they need to have some show of your coding abilities. Some people, what they do is, let's say they're faced with a really hard problem, they spend a lot of time, let's say they spend 30 minutes in trying to get the solution itself. You won't have enough time to code. paper. But unless you have something on paper to prove your skills, you're not going to go to the next stage. So if you look at a hard solution and you know you need some time to think and you know the brute force of that, it's fine to code the brute force so that you have something on paper. Also, let's say you're discussing with the interviewer. It's kind of a collaborative process where the interviewer wants he or she also wants you to get hired. So it's not like they'll oppose you. They'll try to work with you in order to arrive at the solution. So they might also give you certain hints to push you in the right direction. So some candidates, they take those hints and they modify the solution. Some stick to their initial approach. But the problem with sticking to your initial approach is that you can get stuck for a long time, and at the end you might not have anything. So if you're receiving hints, take some time to think about it. Take some 5 minutes, 2 minutes to think about it, and try to change your approach to follow the interviewer's hints actually, so that you can also get the right solution there. So up to this point, if you guys have any questions, you can either like put it on the chat or like I can take it over voice as well. Okay. Let's move on. You guys can put the question in the chat anytime, or like feel free to stop me and like I'll take your questions. I would say that.
So I had a question.
Yes.
So I'm currently in my final year, and like the placement season is ahead. So we had to prepare our resume. I have 2 papers published, and I was thinking whether to make a separate section called publications and put those 2 papers, or I should mention it in a project. I mean, like, because it was a part of a project. So should I make it like under projects, or how should I do it?
If you have research publications, it's great. You can add it in the separate section as well, but make sure that the resume that you're making, you follow, let's say, a latex template. It's structured, it's 1 page, and you can have it as a separate section as well. That's not a problem. Just add a link. Let's say you publish an IEEE paper, add the link publication there, and like 1 line about what you published. So that would be great as well.
Okay, 1 line about what I published, that too should be there.
Yeah, because like if they see the link, right, no one will understand like what is it about. So maybe 1 line about what the paper is about and a link to, let's say, the IEEE or Springer or the journal that you published it.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So any other questions? Okay, there's some chat questions. I'll take them up. Are theory subjects important for an interview? I would say that subjects like computer networks, DBMS, if you know the basics of these questions, basics of these subjects, they will be helpful. However, from my experience interviewing with Amazon, Microsoft, and Google, the weightage to these questions, these subjects or these questions are extremely low. So the main priority in these MAN companies are for you to be able to solve the data, at least as a fresher, I would say, or like 1 year experience, is for you to solve these data structure and algorithm questions in a good way and communicate. It is great. I would suggest you to revise at least subjects like computer networks and DBMS so that you have a hold of it. But the weightage of those questions are not a lot at all. So like revise them at the last, but put your main focus to data structure and algorithms and communicating the way you speak. Then the next one is, if we have asked for a referral, do we need to apply on the portal after that? So it depends. Let's say you ask a referral and then you get it. Someone from Amazon, Microsoft, or Google gave you a referral. You will typically get a link in your mailbox stating that this person has referred you. Please complete your application. So then you click on that and then you finish your application as well. So typically you do get a mail if someone referred you, and the person also will intimate you that, you know what, I've referred you. So please complete the application. So that's that. And is learning development required after learning DSA? In your resume, if you have a couple of, is the question, is learning development important in order to crack interviews, or is the question that is it necessary to learn development? Because at the end of the day, after you learn DSA and you get into a company, you have to do development. You're not going to do DSA or competitive coding anyway. So that's a given. But if you're asking only from the context of an interview, it is great to have some development skills so that you can add 2 to 3 projects in your resume that are strong, good ones. Most people, they kind of do this, fall into this pitfall where they look at YouTube, they see Netflix clone, let's say GitHub clone. They just take that, they make the clone, they just paste that in your resume. That is not going to differentiate your resume. If you genuinely have an idea and you want to grow your skills in development, pick a certain, like let's say you want to do in React or HTML, CSS, JS. Just pick a framework, make a good project on it, host it. Let's say use Heroku or something, host it, add a link on your resume so that people can just click on it. And so because no one is going to open GitHub, download your project, run the dependencies and host it. But if you host it on something on the cloud, or let's say Heroku or something, they can click on it, they can go to your website, they can go to your app, they can see it, how it plays out, and that'll be a good thing there. So it's good to have a couple of strong projects in that area there. But in case of an interview, the questions that you're going to be asked is just how you did the project, what are the technologies that you faced, what are some challenges that you faced while developing the project, and so on. And again, similar to the previous question about the theory subject being important, I would say 80% of your interview is going to be focused on data structures and algorithms. The remaining 20%, you might get questions on your project, or you might get questions on the theory subjects, but extremely low percentage compared to the other ones. And another question is it tough to balance development and DSA? What should we do? I would say that in case of development, I need to know like what sort of development are you trying. Let's say, are you trying for website building, or are you talking about app development, or let's say you're doing machine learning? It depends on that. But I would say that if it's tough for you to balance development and DSA, focus more on DSA. Focus, like, because DSA is pretty much the elimination round at each company, so you have to be really good at them. Development is a great skill to have, because once you go into production level code and you go into writing this code, you are going to do development pretty much for multiple years to come. So it is a great skill to have development skills there. Find out a time frame. We can find out a time frame where you can give your attention to both development and DSA. Shouldn't be, you shouldn't burn yourself out as well. So have a plan where you kind of can balance both development and DSA. Give maybe like 70% of your time to DSA, 60% of your time to DSA, the remaining 40% focus on development. Take few breaks, make small projects, and then slowly start out. Don't just start by thinking that I want to do everything at once, because that will burn you out. So take it slow. And I see that Anvesha raised her hand. Yes.
Yes, like you talked about this dev project. So, like currently, I have two projects, which is one on chat, OpenSSL chat application, and another is Wi-Fi authentication and like forcefully acting as a rogue Wi-Fi and the authentication. So
Right.
these, and other than I don't have any development kind of project, but I just made a small website. But like, is that fine?
No, the project that you mentioned about SSL and the other one, they're good enough projects in your resume, right? You don't need to, there's no constraint that you have to have a web development project. Whatever project that you have made, they're good enough to add in your resume. And since you've done it, you should be able to explain to the interviewer, how did you, for example, the rogue Wi-Fi that you mentioned. As long as you're familiar with the implementation details and you know what you've done, it's great. There's no constraint that it has to be web or machine learning or anything.
Okay. Okay, these two things. And one more question I had on skills. Like I'm well versed with C and C++, but like for Python, I just use Matplotlib to plot results. So is that a way to put Python as my technical skill?
I mean, you're asking in terms of, do you add Python in your resume?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I would say that you can add it and say that you're a beginner in Python or whatever. That's not a problem. But I would say, since you're strong in C and C++, just mention that you're proficient in those languages, and add, let's say you're learning Python, add something like that at the end. It's not a problem. But I would say that if you're not fully proficient, I see a lot of people, they add, like I've seen resumes where they add C, C++, Java, Python, React, they add everything there. So just add things that you're comfortable enough in. And in case you're learning something, it's totally okay to mention there that, you're kind of a beginner in these things and you're learning this. So there's no problem there itself.
Okay, so how to mention like that? Like maybe my interest is Python, or like just basics of Python, or like I just use to plot the results. Should I mention it like that?
I would say there are two ways. Let's say you have a certain small mini project Python, you can mention that the tech stack that you use for this project involves Python. Or if you want to add it separately, just say that you're proficient in, like have a section saying that you're proficient in C, C++, and you're proficient in these frameworks, but you're kind of a novice in Python, but you're learning. So have a separate section for that, or mention it in part of like, what did you plot in Python, some mini project or something, right? Mention it in that aspect.
Okay, so in that case, the interviewer won't go into deep for those things.
The interviewer is not going to go deep on things that you mentioned that you're just learning. But if you say that you're proficient in, let's say, C++, he can go deep in those areas and ask you a couple of questions.
Okay, fine. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. And let me go back to the chat. Okay, Anmol Kumar raised the hand. Can you unmute and ask? Yeah.
Sir, if we are making the projects not based on the development part, but on the DSC part, so would there be any foundation or any restrictions also?
No. So basically, I will clarify one thing here. So there is no constraint on the type of project that you make. It can be based on data structure. It can be based on web development. It can be based on machine learning. It can be based on app development. It can be based on anything. As long as the project that you are making is not something that you just took off YouTube or took off GitHub, and something that you actually put your effort in, and something that you can explain in the interviewer. For example, this is the challenge that I faced. This was the idea that I had. This is the problem that I solved. If you can explain in that way, right, you'll face no problems in like explaining whatever project you've done. There's no foundation or no constraint. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. Vishnuvardhan, can you ask your question? I can't hear you actually. Okay, I'll take the chat questions in that time. So how to improve DP, being unable to come up with recurrence or any specific resource you would suggest for the same? I would say that in order to improve dynamic programming, a lot of people face this issue. First, I would say start with recursion, solve a bunch of recursion problems. Let's say start from the very basic, let's say permutation, combinations, combination log, all these like famous standard problems. And then kind of start with 1D DP, let's say house robber or problems like that. Start with 1D DP and kind of, there are a bunch of YouTube videos you can watch for it as well. But mainly, I would say start with 1D DP, then start solving 2D DP problems like, Levenstein distance or edit distance or, LCS. Start with these problems. And once there are multiple ways to solve a problem with DP. So I would say once you understand one particular topic, try to solve it in the other way as well. And let's say you master recursion, you solve 30 problems, 40 problems of recursion, and you're confident enough that given a problem, you can write a recurrence relation or you can solve that recurrence problem. Look at a DP problem and first try to solve it with recursion, because typically that requires less effort than actually coming up with the DP formulation at the starting itself. Coming up with the recurrence requires you to like break the problem into sub problems and then trying to prove why it's correct and everything. So that will come with practice. Once you practice enough, you will get that, and try to solve a given DP problem in terms of recursion, and then try to memorize it, and then try to convert it into iteration, for example. So that can be one way. So practice a lot of recursion problems, solve DP problems using the recursion, and then try to memorize, and then slowly shift your logic into how to come up with the iterative solution by itself. So that's that. And I see another question, which language is mostly used for DSA in industry? Okay, so in the industry, you don't really use a lot of DSA. So let's say that C, C++, Java, Python, to interview, candidates use these languages in order to interview and get into these companies. Once you get into these companies, you are going to be working on development project. Let's say I work on iOS. So my main languages that I code in are Swift and Objective-C. And let's say someone else is working on Android development. So the main language they will work on are Kotlin and Java. Some other people work on web development project in C#. So you are expected to understand and learn the language that the job requires you to. That is why you have data structures and algorithm as a common ground for all these MANG companies, because they expect that if you're good enough at learning data structure and algorithms, you are good enough to learn the languages on the fly. So that is why they don't have domain specific, two domain specific questions there and have that as a common ground. So any other questions? Okay, so I'll just continue. So in this case, moving on, let's say you also have a HR round that comes at the end of the interview, where some people, they focus too much on the technical aspect of the interview and they kind of leave out the HR round. So what happens in the HR round is prepare for general questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What is one challenging problem that you've faced so far? If you're in work, let's say, what is a stressful situation you face in work and how you overcame it? Or let's say if you're a student, regarding a project, what is some challenging situation that you face in a project and how did you overcome it? And always kind of follow the STAR method. So you have a situation, you have a task, what action did you perform, and what result did you obtain? So if you kind of structure your questions in this format, right, it'll help you a lot. So that is one thing. Also, I would say that prepare according to the company you're applying for. I know that most of you guys, when I saw the poll, you want to target MANG companies, but even in MANG, there is kind of apply based on the prepare based on the company. For example, let's say Google, right? Google's HR round, or the round they use to find out if you have leadership skills, is called the Googliness round. So Google about that, try to find out interview experiences, past interview experiences of the Googliness round, and prepare accordingly. Let's say in Amazon, right? they focus on the 14 leadership principle that every Amazonian should know. So let's say that you're interviewing with Amazon and you also did the effort previously itself where you went to the Amazon site, you read all these principles, and you structure your answers in the situation, task, action, result in such a way that they pertain to Amazon's culture and their values, right? If you can make the link between those two, the interviewer will also feel that, you know what, this person has made the research in order to find out about the company and why he would be a culturally fit person for this company to join. So make some extra effort apart from the technical skills to identify how well you can communicate your solution and certain company specific things that you can focus. Let's say for Amazon also, let's say you have the 2 to 3 technical rounds, and then you have something called a bar raiser round, where typically an SDM, who's a software development manager, comes and interviews you on the question. They can ask you class design questions or data structure questions itself. So you have those things also. Look at interview experiences. In Microsoft, just similar to the bar raiser, you can have something called an as appropriate round, where a very senior engineer, let's say a senior manager, comes and interviews you on those questions there. So also identify these things. Identify what are the differences across companies and how can you prepare so that you can be completely, well versed while cracking these companies. These are for like mostly product-based companies that have been there for a few years, or man companies. Let's say for startups, if you want to apply for certain startups, let's say that are new currently, the focus shifts from data structures and algorithms to domain specific knowledge. It goes into, let's say that you're applying for a web development or a machine learning engineer position at a fairly new startup. The main thing you need to focus on is getting your skills in those domains high, because man companies think that they can hire you, and because you're great at data structures and communicating, you will be great at picking up any technology and they can train you on those and give you enough time to ramp up. Startups, fairly new startups, expect you to already know the domain knowledge and less data structure and algorithm, because they want you to directly start developing production level code. They don't want to invest that 2-3 months that you take to ramp up. So in case you're applying for fairly new startups, get your development skills in that area pretty high. I would say that for service-based companies, it's kind of the same thing, but the level of the data structure and algorithm questions is slightly easier, I would say, but still you need to be well-versed in data structures and algorithms. And some companies, they also ask, you aptitude questions, for example, or they ask you communication skills or GD type rounds as well, if you're looking for on-campus as well. So these are the main things. So whether you're applying for service-based, product-based, or for man companies, data structures and algorithms are kind of common. But in man companies, the weightage of data structures is extremely high. In service-based companies, it's also high, but in fairly new startups, it is pretty low, because startups focus on development kind of skills there. So that's that. And I would say these are some interview resources that I've collected. For example, if you're looking for behavioral interviews, there's a YouTube channel by Jeff. You can follow that. Books like Cracking the Coding interviews or Elements of Programming interviews have been there for multiple years in the industry right now. They're good books to follow. Mainly, I would suggest that if you're making a resume, do not stick with just a normal, a normal Word or a normal one-page resume there. Try to make some effort in structuring your resume. And LaTeX is a really good language for that. You can use an overleaf editor where you have a bunch of templates, where you can choose a template, you can tailor it according to your needs, and you can add sections and subsections, and it'll look really formatted. It should look different from the thousands of people that are applying. It should look that you put in extra effort in order to make your resume structured, right? And then LeetCode is anyway a great resource for practicing, data structures and algorithms. You're applying for, let's say, Google or Microsoft, they have separate paths there. Google has the tech dev path where they have a bunch of resources to practice. Let's say, interview questions, trees, or whatever. They have a separate section called tech dev that you can click on this link and you can go and practice. And Microsoft, for example, has a separate page where they tell you that you should be proficient with data structures, proficient in communicating and everything. So some main topics that you guys can focus on are linked lists, trees, graphs, arrays, and DP. These are kind of, I feel, one of the important topics to practice for the interviews. And I take a pause here and I'll take up any questions that you guys have till now. Yes, Vishnu.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Hi.
Sir, while learning DSA, so should I solve more problems on each topic while I learn that structure? I mean, so I learned the arrays problems. Should I solve more problems on arrays, or should I solve some problems until get a nice understanding and move on to next topic? And after learning DSA, should I come from start? So while solve.
Okay, that's a good. Yeah, I understood your question. That's actually a great question. I think that I would suggest, let's say you solve 10 to 15 problems on arrays and you're at a position right now where sorry, let's say you're at a position where you can solve most of the, let's say 60 to 70% of the problems, you're getting the logic, let's say, right? Let's say you're able to solve those problems in arrays. You're not able to solve all the array problems, unknown problems that you've seen, but you're at a position where you know that you have a good grasp of arrays right now. I would say at that point, where you can solve around 60% of unknown problems or medium problems on your own, move to the next topic, practice a bunch of problems in the next topic, go on. And once you have like decent understanding of all these topics, like the linked list, arrays, trees, graphs, DP, all these topics, you have a decent understanding, come back and then solve more problems on those things and go on. Because what is the problem of the approach of mastering a topic is that at the end of the day, you need to know enough to crack the interview. And if you become an expert in arrays, let's say, right, you go deep and you can solve ultimately hard problems on arrays, it's not going to give you, if you're interested, you should do it, but it's not going to give you that much return in the time you have to prepare for an interview. Because in an interview, you're supposed to solve arrays, trees, graphs, the bunch is more like a mixed bag rather than going in depth in a particular topic. You should know enough to solve medium and some hard problems, but going too deep. For example, I've seen people, see segment tree beats and stuff, which is a topic in computer programming, where it's a great, interesting topic, but the effective usage of that in an interview is close to none. So if you're interested in going that deep, it's great. But in an interview perspective, solve enough problems in a topic that you gain a good understanding of it, go to the next topic and come back and revise the topic so that you know the techniques that you solve to use those problems.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome.
Sir, how many problems should I solve, like in easy level, medium level, hard level?
So there is no bunch number of problems that I can give you. For example, when I interviewed, the total number of problems I solved was 120, out of which 100 were medium and 20 were around hard. But I would say that, see, I've seen people solve 600 problems and say that they're still not proficient data structure. I've seen people solve 50 problems and say they're ready. You should solve, I would say, focus on medium problems. Focus on medium problems. And if you want a sort of list, right, you can follow the blind 75 list, or you can follow, you can just Google Sean Prasad's list of data structure patterns, and you can find a common interview question kind of list. You can follow that. But I would say the main goal of an interview is for you to identify the logic for an unknown median level problem, communicate your logic, optimize it, and code it in a good production level ready code in that 20 minutes that you have each. So in order to do that, focus on solving more medium questions. Focus on solving without autocomplete, because a lot of us developers, I know that we just use an IDE to code and it has autocomplete and all these features and everything. But instead of using autocomplete, try to code without autocomplete, without all these features, because in the interview, this is one main thing that people don't understand, that in an interview, you are not able to run your code multiple times and then identify there's a compilation error and go back and change it, run it back and change your code. So very rarely in interviews will you have the option to run your code. You're expected to write production level code and syntactically and semantically correct code at the starting itself. So practice that. So let's say that you write a code, try to minimize the compilation errors, try to get the logic straight itself, try to optimize it in that way. When I interviewed for Google, they expected me to code in Google Docs. So Google Docs really does not have an autocomplete or all these features there. When I interviewed Amazon Microsoft as well, they have their own indentation feature, but not autocomplete or all these IntelliSense features that all these modern IDEs have. So you should try to be prepared in that aspect as well. Coming back to your original question, solve problems until you feel like you're confident enough in each topic to take an unknown problem and get the main logic of it within 20 minutes. At that stage, I would say that you're ready. It might take 100 problems, it might take 120 problems, but don't solve 100 problems. Look at blind 75, look at a good collection and solve problems so that you gain a good understanding of medium level problems and common interview problems in each of these topics.
Okay, sir. Sir, which platform is better for solving problem? Lead Code or Geeks for Geeks or HackerRank? I mean,
you can solve anything. Like, see, whether you solve problems on Lead Code or Geeks for Geeks, there's not something. Sorry, there's some background noise, like Arvind. Yeah, hi. Yeah, thank you. So coming back to your question, Vishnu, it's more like you can solve questions on Lead Code, you can solve questions for Geeks, and you can solve questions on other platforms as well. I would say that Lead Code and Geeks for Geeks are pretty good platforms to practice. HackerRank has their interview. I think that's also pretty good. But no matter what you do, let's say you stick with Lead Code, solve problems on Lead Code, look at the interview experiences also, solve medium problems. In whatever platform that you're solving, solve medium problems, focus on common interview patterns, and focus on getting the logic without looking at the solution. That's the main thing. So let's say you solve a problem for 20 minutes, then 20 minutes, 30 minutes, let's say 1 hour, and then you have no idea of the logic, then you can look at it and then practice forward. But the main goal is for you to try to identify how to think in the right direction. It's fine if it takes more time at the starting, but it will help you to kind of optimize your approach in the future, where you don't have to rely on looking at the solution. Because if you look at the solution too soon and too often, there'll come a stage where, let's say after a couple of months, when you look back at the same question, you'll start kind of wonder like, how did I solve that question? So that also should not happen. So stick to a platform. I would suggest Lead Code and Geeks. For Geeks, they're pretty good. You can choose HackerRank or anything else. Everything is pretty much. But focus on solving medium questions. Focus on solving it on your own, and you'll be good there.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. And Anmol, can you ask a question?
Sir, what are the things companies look for in one's resume while shortlisting over thousands of the resume?
Okay, so that's a good question. So when you say that they receive thousands of resumes, that is true. But the sad part is most of the resumes they review, they don't have a differentiating aspect. So most of it, they just like, people bundle together some stuff, they all dump it in one page and they put it. So main thing is first, have a structured resume. So like you see in the interview resources, I added Overleaf there, which is kind of a great source where you can structure your resume using a template. Have a good structure. Have your resume of one page. Remove unnecessary information. For example, you have something like photos, address, and hobbies and stuff. You can remove. Third, add quantifiable metrics. I have solved X number of problems on this platform. I have interned in this company. I have improved the process of this company by X percentage. Have quantifiable impact. If you have projects, add links to those projects and mention what are the tech stack that you use, and mention a couple of lines about that project, and make sure the project is not copied from anywhere. It's your original project. So if you have these 4 or 5 things, right, your resume will kind of stand out. And even when you send your resume, it's more likely to give you a referral.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome. And Anvesha, can you ask a question?
Yes, so right now, for now, we have to clear the online assessments also and then appear for interviews. Online assessments will be starting from August, and the interviews are all lined up in December.
Right.
So it's like I am choosing a topic, and like I'm solving at least 20-30 questions on that. And till now, I've covered sliding window, hashing, 2-pointer, and I have started with DP. But as you told in interview, it's like instead of going so deep, I should have an overall knowledge of all the topics like tree, linked list, I mean like graphs and everything. So what should be my approach? I have currently done some 200 questions.
Okay, so I would say that in these 200 questions, what are the topics that you've covered? Like that you're confident that, let's say you have an unknown problem on these topics, you'll be able to solve it at like 60-70%. So what are the topics you're confident about?
Hashing, 2-pointers, and it's like because I revised them again. Like I did hashing, 2-pointer, sliding window, and again I went back to hashing and 2-pointers. So now I'm confident in that. But currently I did do a lot of problems on sliding window, but it's like it feels like I've forgotten. Like it would take time to recall back. So
okay, yeah. So I would say that see, since you've solved a bunch of problems in sliding window, when I said that you need to have an overall understanding of all the topic, that is true, because in an interview you can get a question on any topic. Let's say you become a professional and you get a question on trees in an interview. You can't be like, I'm an expert in sliding window, so I'm only expected to solve questions of sliding window. So you need to have an overall understanding, which is true. But let's say sliding window is your weak point. Like someone mentioned that dynamic programming is their weak point. I would say that against my advice, if you have a weak point, let's say sliding window or DP, solving more problems on that topic is completely fine. Solve enough problems in a particular topic such that you're confident enough to solve a medium question in under 20 minutes. That is a rubric that I have to evaluate myself, for example. If I solve like 20 problems in a topic and I know that, you know what, in an unknown topic, I know all the patterns of this. Let's say sliding window, you have fixed sliding window, you have mobile pointer sliding window, you have 2-3 techniques. Let's say you solve 2-3 problems in each of these techniques, and you know the techniques within sliding window itself, and you know that given a question, you can run through your brain that, you know what, these are the topics in this within sliding window, these are the different techniques, and I know that I'll be able to solve the logic, move on to the next one. Because when you say that you solved 200 questions and you've solved like sliding window arrays or these 3 to 4 topics, the compared to the number of problems, the topics are low. So that's no problem. But I would say that also broaden it and start solving other topics as well. Trees, recursion, DP, start looking into those topics. And the problem that you face, right, when you look at the same problem after some time, you kind of forget. That's a common problem. And there is a technique called spaced repetition. So what does spaced repetition mean is that you solve a question, and let's say most people, they kind of come back to it after 1 month and they'll be like, what did I code exactly? So to not come into that, every week, once you solve a particular question, solve related questions to that topic, or have a note down somewhere that this is the topic that you use, and revise the things that you learn per week, so that all the techniques are fresh in your mind, because there's a bunch of techniques that you're learning right now, and it's common to kind of forget it as you go on. I would say 2 things to you. Also broaden, like start solving other topics as well, let's say trees, DP, and solve enough so that you're kind of confident to solve certain medium level questions in those topics. Then also like revise the topics that you've learned every week or so. It's called spaced repetition. You can Google about it as well. It's more like revise the topic that you've learned so that it's fresh in your mind always. So that even when you look at it after 3 months, you'll still know that, you made a note of these things and they're fresh in your mind. You're solving related topics to those questions that you've solved per week in revision. So these are the 2 things I would suggest.
Okay, and when, like, suppose I'm solving a unknown problem, like sometimes I take a 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 2 hours, and then I come to the solution. So it's kind of a long time. I mean, I should not take that much time. So
No. So like what you're saying, right? You take 2 hours to come to a solution. At the initial stage, if you're struggling with a problem, you're thinking about the problem without looking at the solution for 2-3 hours, and at the end of the day, you're coming to that solution. It's great at the initial stage. I would say that you need to come to that level. Like later, as you keep practicing, the amount of time you take to thinking on particular problems will reduce. You'll start to identify patterns. You'll see an array sorted. You'll be like, it's either 2 pointers or binary search. You'll say that, you have trees problem. You'll try to identify the patterns and what are the topics that the problems involve as you go on. But in the initial stage, when you're practicing, if you take more time, it's fine, as long as you come to the correct solution. I would say that unless you're spending, let's say 6 hours or something on a problem, and let's say you spend multiple hours without an idea, as long as you have an idea, no matter how much time it takes, stick to it, in my opinion, so that you'll get the satisfaction of solving the problem on your own.
yeah,
Then you can get that, and then you can revise the topic and solve like related problems on that topic. And then as you keep practicing, the amount of time you take will reduce on those things, so you don't have to worry about that. Keep practicing and like solve more unless you have no idea, then it's okay, look at hints or solutions. Otherwise, you just keep trying.
okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome. And I'll just take up a few chat questions as well. So so hi, I'm a third year student in AI and DS branch. It's kind of tough to plan for future plannings. Like, should I first master machine learning and data science, or go for the same post in machine learning field, or focus on DSA and go for big companies? And what is the current scenario of placement in ML companies? Sorry. So basically, I would say that since you're in third year right now, and the question is whether you have to look for machine learning, engineering roles, or data science related roles, or you should look for roles in these big companies. I would say why not both? You do have machine learning positions in companies like Google and Microsoft also. You have research internship positions at these companies. For example, Microsoft is big into research interns right now because of the whole ChatGPT and everything. So you can, I would say, focus on DSA. Because at the end of the day, even if you go for a machine learning round at these companies, the starting 2 rounds that you will face are DSA. The OA is going to be of DSA. The starting 2 technical rounds are going to be of DSA. The remaining 2 rounds that you have, they can ask you specific machine learning questions about how, let's say you did a project and you did an end-to-end ML process. Let's say you can have questions on that, or they can ask you specific pointers. What is chi-square test, for example? They can ask you pointed questions in the machine learning domain. But data structure is kind of a safe bet that all companies have at least 1 round, even if you're looking for domain-specific roles like machine learning in big companies. I would say practice data structure algorithm. Second, since you're in third year right now and you're already studying AI and DS, I would say that study machine learning and data science as well, because I feel like that you have coursework related to, and if you make projects related to those things, you'll also have an opportunity to add good machine learning and AI projects in your resume right now, along with having a good hold of data structures. So you don't have to compromise one in order to do the other. People say DSA versus development or something. It's not like that. You can have a good development and you can have good DSA skills both. So you don't have to compromise in that sense. And there is a great scope for ML right now. The last question, what is the current scenario of ML companies? There's a great scope even in startups and other companies right now because of the AI craze. There's huge scope in machine learning. So the next question, Harshita asks, with ChatGPT and AI improving, is development a good career choice? So, okay, ChatGPT is pretty good right now, but at the end of the day, it's a generative AI model. And while being in, let's say that you're a developer right now and you ask ChatGPT a question. ChatGPT is a great resource. Let's say even for developers, upskill yourself in certain areas. Let's say that you're looking for documentation, you're looking for sample code in order to publish an app, you can do that. But as the topics become increasingly complex, ChatGPT is not at that level right now where it can replace a developer's role completely. As you go more and more domain specific, because ChatGPT is a generative model, it can give you a code, but the correctness of that code decreases higher the complexity goes. That is the state of the art right now. And even if ChatGPT gets to that level with the improvement that it's making, where it can write proficient code, you need people to write code for ChatGPT. So it's not like developers' roles are going to go anyways. It's going to be more like there'll be specialized roles where you can move in right now. And right now, even let's say for code forces tasks, right? Let's say there was this study or someone that some paper or study that they did. ChatGPT right now can solve around 800 to 900 level code forces problems. But if you give it a 1500 or 1600 or 2000 level problem, it will not give you the correct code for that problem right now. So it's not at that level where it can replace a developer. But even if it gets to that level, the developer's job is never going to go, because at the end of the day, people who code ChatGPT are developers.
Hey everyone, I think Athreya has dropped. You can wait for 2 minutes. He'll be joining back.
My net just crashed. I'm sorry. I just joined back. Can you guys hear me now? Okay, perfect. So I was just saying that this is the best time, for example, to get into development related roles right now, because the craze for AI and machine learning is huge right now, and you need people in order to develop those systems. And let's say you want to work on generative AI or stuff like that, timing is perfect. And also, AI is not at a place where it can replace development right now. It is more of a tool to make your life as a developer easy. So I'd 100% do that. And also, if someone can help me with the chat, because I just dropped, I kind of lost the chat history. So if someone can read out the questions, I'd be really happy there. Like, or you can just unmute and ask your question, because I kind of lost the chat transcript and the history when I dropped. If we have done an internship certification of around 3 to 4 months, can we put it in experience section in the resume? Sure. So you can do an internship for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. The main thing is, what did you do in that internship? How did you contribute to the company? What impact did you deliver? And can you mention some quantifiable aspect? Mention the tech stack you worked on, mention the project you worked on, mention what impact you've done. Great. Add it to your resume. It's perfect. I think there are a bunch of, okay, there's another question. I have a DSA question bank and I'm solving all the questions in VS Code. So is it important to choose an online platform like CodeChef or LeetCode to solve a question, and how much impact is it to my placement? Okay, see, I would say that since you're solving in VS Code has IntelliSense, and VS Code pretty much has a lot of plugins that you can use to make your life easier. But in an actual interview, like I told you, you can't really run your code and iterate over, like, let's say you have a compilation error. Let's say you don't have a compilation error, you have a logical error. You run it on input, you see a wrong answer, and you iterate back. That's not really the case in an interview. You can't run your code. So practice solving, let's say on paper, or practice solving on Google Docs, or practice coding somewhere else without IntelliSense, copy paste and paste that code in Lead Code, and then check if it works. Because no matter what platform you use, let us say Lead Code, CodeChef, Geeks for Geeks, or HackerRank, the main thing is that all these platforms do not check the quality of their code. They check the test cases, and they give you the constraints that, you know what, this is the input constraint, this is the output constraint, print in this way. It'll check whether the correctness of your solution. It won't check the code quality, and it will give you IntelliSense. So I would say practice separately also. Practice on, paper or Google Docs or something. Practice writing syntactically and semantically code on the first try itself, and try to paste it and then check if it works there on the solution. Let's say if it doesn't work, before you submit this, make sure that while you write this code, let's say on Google Docs, or let's say on Microsoft Word, you write the code, try to think whether it covers all the edge cases, try to think about all the constraints, and try to iterate without running your code. When you submit it, have it in your mind that you need to submit the correct solution directly on the first try. So that will kind of give, like, instill in your practice that you're writing correct code on the first try itself. So that's what I would suggest there. And Anmol,
Sir,
yeah.
just like you have said, we have to also write on the Google Docs or Word. So do we have access to the inbuilt functions there, or we have to make our own functions? Just like
No,
in C++,
no.
we have sort also.
Right. So it depends on the question. Let's say that the interviewer specifically wants you to implement something, then it's different. But ideally, you will have access to the inbuilt functions. Let's say that because the question that you ask, right, that they ask you, they're not going to be a trivial question. There'll be a medium question that expects you to have knowledge of all these, let's say sorting, or let's say STL or sets or vectors and all these things. You need to use these as tools to solve the question. They're looking for your logic building skills. Can you use your logic to use the resources at your disposal, to use these tools and technologies that you know in order to solve the question? So as long as the interviewer doesn't have a problem, you can for sure use inbuilt questions, inbuilt STL or templates, or let's say you have it. Also, let's say that you have a really big, hard problem that you're asked. It's okay for you to tell them that, this is the function that I'm writing. I'll call this function. Let's say a question involves you to build a self-balancing binary search tree and then do operations on that binary search tree. The main logic is in doing some operations on the binary search tree. Building it is kind of the default ad hoc task that you do. It's okay for you, in the interest of time, to write a function there and just call that dummy function and tell them that, I'll fill this function up later. This is the main logic that I'm writing, so that you have a full discussion on the logic. And when time permits, go back and fill that ad hoc task there. So it's completely fine there itself. And yes, what's the other question you had?
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. And the other question is, sir, which programming language should I learn as a second-year engineering student of data science branch? Python, machine learning, or JavaScript? Since you're in data science, I would suggest that you learn Python. Python is going to be useful in your data structures and algorithms interviews. It has a great collections library, and it has JavaScript also you can learn. But I would suggest that interviewing per se, like in the terms of interviewing, look for C, C++, Java, Python. Mainly C++, Java, and Python, because they're commonly used. You can interview in any language as you like, but these are the commonly used languages. So focus on those. Since you're specifically telling me that you're into machine learning and you're studying machine learning, Python hugely helpful in that case. So I would suggest Python. Learn machine learning, do projects on those things, side by side practice DSA as well. So that's that. And tell me the question, Anmol.
Sorry, it's for just by default.
Okay, got it. No problem. And sir, even for the developer roles like web development engineer or full stack developer, do we have a coding round, as in a written test? A written test where you write on pen and paper only happens in on-campus interviews. If you're looking for off-campus interviews, because everything is virtual, you depends on what sort of company you're applying for. If you apply for companies like Mang companies, let's say Microsoft, Google, Amazon, like even if you're applying for a full stack developer role, all the rounds, 90% will be on data structures and algorithms itself. Because like I said, the man companies think that if you're really proficient in data structures and algorithms, right, you can translate that skill that you have in order to learn any technology that they give you on the project that you work on. So even though the role that they give you is a full stack development engineer at Google or Microsoft, all the runs that you will face in these man companies, 90% at the beginner initial stage will be on data structures and algorithms. You will have all coding rounds itself, but not a written test, an online assessment, like I mentioned, on a platform, and then four to five face-to-face technical rounds like this on a video call where supposed to share your screen and solve. That's that. And sir, I'm a third year student with Linux kernel experience, no Python, VB, Sharp, Java, etc. Some x86 programming as well. No linked list, graphs, vectors, link graph, 3D matrix, lattice graphs, but I didn't do DSA. What do I do now? Can I pass interviews? It's great that you know all these different things, but I would say you already know linked list graphs and let's say, lattice graphs and everything. That's great. If you know all these things, for you to pick up data structures and algorithms is not going to take you a long time. Put in some amount of months to learn data structures and algorithms, solve a bunch of medium problems. If you're stuck, look at the solution, iterate back, solve similar problems, keep revising, and you will be able to pass interviews in a few months if you keep practicing. That's not a problem at all. So it's great that you know all these different things, however. Now, how much code forces or lead code rating should we have to get a resume shortlisted from tier 3? Tier 3, tier 2, whatever the tier is, the main thing that will differentiate you is that you need to have great data structure and algorithm skills. You need to have a great resume. You should know how to communicate your solution to the interviewer, follow hints, and solve it. It doesn't matter. The college does not matter in off campus because you're going to get 10,000 resumes. A company is going to get tens of thousands of resumes, and they don't have the time to discriminate someone based on the college they are from. So what they look for is that, let's say that they don't say something like you should be an expert at code forces in order to shortlist the resume. No, you can be at any level. The main thing they look for is good enough data structure and algorithm skills. So if you have a great resume and you have great data structure and algorithm skills and you put your skills and practice to that level, tier is not going to stop you from getting into any company. So that's that. So there's no specific rating as such. You should be able to solve medium problems within 20 minutes. That's it. What is one factor recruiters see in order to consider a candidate's resume for the interview? So these are the 4 things, okay? Companies get multiple resumes at once, multiple. So thousands of them. You need to have a structured resume, remove unnecessary things like photo, address, hobbies, and let's say people say there were monitors and stuff, remove those things. Second, add quantifiable impact. If you intern, mention what are the tech stack, what are the projects you made, add a link to the projects you've made so that people can check them out. Mention the quantifiable impact you've caused for the company, and also have a one-page resume, have it in a good way. So these are some 3-4 things that the interviewer kind of notices in that case. And if you make projects, make sure it's your own and not like some easily copied one as well. So which programming language should I learn as a second-year BTech data science student? Python, machine learning, C++, web development, JavaScript. See, you have the choice of choosing whatever language that you want. That is not the problem, actually. You can choose Python, you can choose C++, you can choose Java. That is not the problem. The main thing is choose a language, stick to that language, solve a bunch of problems in language. See, the reason why companies have data structure and algorithm is a common ground is that no matter you use Python, Java, C++, or JavaScript in order to solve the interviews, data structure and algorithm concepts remain constant no matter the language. So that is why that is the entry level requirement for engineers there. So I would say, since you're doing, again, data science, similar to the machine learning thing I mentioned, since you're doing data science, I would say Python would be a good language to pick up because it'll help you in machine learning. It has a bunch of inbuilt libraries. Let's say you want to do neural networks and stuff. You can use, Torch and all these different TensorFlow. You can use Keras and all these things. When you're coming to the data structure aspect, you can also use collections and all those different things. And again, I would also give you guys an advice that someone mentioned that can we use inbuilt functions? You can. But in the online assessment round specifically, I've seen some companies, for example, SAP was one company where they mentioned that you cannot use inbuilt STL functions in the online assessment round. So also, if you rely too heavily on inbuilt function, that's not a good thing. Also know how they're implemented as well. That's one thing. And in this case, Priya, I would suggest you start with the Python and then focus on machine learning, make a few projects. You can try web development if you want and learn JavaScript, but use Python also, use collections, use Python in order to, practice DSA as well. It's a great thing. Kshitij asks, should we submit photo or non-photo resumes for companies? I saw DSA. I'm doing currently top 150 interview questions, but after a few days, I don't remember the approach. So, sir, how should I prepare for my interviews? As my interviews are going to start from July end. Okay, so this is I would suggest non-photo resumes. Like, there's no problem in putting your photo, but it takes up space in your resume that you can add some other skills that you have there. So I would suggest non-photo resumes, and there's nothing wrong in putting the photo, however. But this question that you mentioned, that you're solving 150 questions, but you don't remember the approach. Like I mentioned to the other person as well, the other student as well, this is a common problem that people face, that they solve an interview problem, they come back to the same problem after a month, and they're like, they don't remember the approach. So one solution to this is something called spaced repetition. So what spaced repetition entails is that you note down what you did, come back to the same thing after a week, revise it so that it's fresh in your mind. If you don't like static reading, solve the same topic, similar problem, but not the same problem. Solve a similar problem every week so that it's fresh in your mind. Since they're starting from July end, I would say that focus on you're doing the right thing. Focus on top interview questions. Going back, just practice communication skills, practice writing readable code, have comments, have meaningful variables, have a timer, and practice solving within the time. So I would suggest you these things. Then Vishnu said, which language is used for DSA in the industry? I think I covered that. It's like in the industry, you're not going to do DSA questions. So you can crack the interview in any language of your choice, C, C++, Java, Python, जो भी है. But in the industry, you're supposed to work on production level code in the language that they use. I work on iOS development, so I use Swift and Objective-C. People in Android development use Kotlin and Java. Web developers kind of sometimes use C#. Whatever the code base is of that company, you're expected to learn that and solve it. What is the process of campus selection? On-campus interviews are typically the company comes to your campus. They host an initial round. It might be a coding round. It might be an aptitude round. Let's say Amazon or Microsoft comes, they normally host a coding round there, where sometimes they'll give you a pen and paper and they tell you to write the code there. So either that or hosted on Codility or HackerRank or HackerEarth or one of these platforms, coding test, or aptitude rounds. That is the initial round. After the initial round happens on campus, a bunch of people get shortlisted to face-to-face because the interviewers are in your campus. Let's say you have a smaller number of candidates to compete with. So let's say they come to your college, 100 people applied for the initial round. Let's say they shortlist 20 people for face-to-face. In those 20 people, again, the process is very similar to what I mentioned off campus, where they ask you data structure and algorithm rounds, but this is face-to-face. So you see the interviewer in front of you and they can ask you to write on a paper, or they can give you a laptop, or they can ask you to bring your laptop and code in front of them as well. So everything else remains the same there. For Python developer, many companies need experience based on being a Python developer. As a fresher, what you should do? As a fresher, to compensate that, you kind of make projects in Python. You kind of make a portfolio of projects that make sure that even though you don't have experience working in a company, you have experience building projects using the technologies that you have. And also, if you're looking for man companies at a fresher role, they do not expect experience. But if you're looking for startups, some startups do expect some portfolio of work that they can grade on and say that you're a good developer in that aspect. So make a bunch of projects and then you'll be good there. Make a portfolio. But fan companies, you don't need experience there. So data structure is made there. Doesn't matter if you're not for IIT in terms of salary for internship. Does not matter at all. So you can be from any college in the world, as long as you prove that you have good enough skills in order to crack the company. They're not going to differentiate you from, let's say, someone from IIT and someone not. There might be slight differences because everybody does not get a standard salary. That's why the offer negotiation comes into stage as well. Let's say one person has an offer from Amazon. He's from a tier 3 college. Let's say someone has an offer. Someone landed Microsoft and Google. So they can tell the Microsoft and Google recruiters that I have an offer from Amazon. Amazon is offering me this much. Can you match their offer? So at that point, because everybody's experience is different, everyone does not get the same salary. Based on negotiation, some people get higher, some people get lower, but the difference is not that much. That it's not like you're going to get a huge difference. Someone from IIT will get a huge salary bump and you're not from IIT, you'll get a much lesser salary. No. As long as you prove that you're capable enough, your salary will be within the range of a particular level that you apply for, within that range. So not a huge difference. Your projects count as experience as a fresher, not experience under a company. Again, I'll repeat, experience. Typically, when people ask how much experience you have, they mean experience as an intern or full-time experience, mostly is what they mean. Some companies also include internship experience, but I would say build projects or a portfolio so that you can prove that even though you do not have work experience, you have the necessary skills to land a job in a startup or something that requires experience. That was my thing there. Is there any specific number of questions that we should have done before applying for big companies in LeetCode? Please say about CP expectations of recruiter. There is no specific number of questions that you should be able to solve. You can solve any number of questions you want as long as you're confident. It can be even after 50 questions. Let's say you solve 10 trees, 10 graphs, 10 DP, 10 arrays. You solve like 40, 50 questions. And in your mind, you're sure that you know what? I am confident to solve an unknown problem, think in the right direction, take hints, optimize, communicate, write good quality code. At that point, you're ready. If I give you an unknown question, I give you an unknown problem, and you take the problem and you can think in the right direction, you are ready. Some people, they practice thousands of LeetCode problems and they do not interview until they feel that they're completely ready. I do not agree with that approach, because if you want to be perfect, that day is never going to come. You need to be proficient enough to start interviewing so that you can take that interview feedback, iterate on it, improve, and land a job. If you wait for too long and say that you're only going to interview when you're perfect, people put that off indefinitely. So don't do that. Practice when you feel like you know enough of each topic. Let's say you know the basic patterns, you know the link, in place reversal of linked list, sliding window has fixed moving sliding window, trees, in-order traversals, all these different traversals, graphs, how articulation points, or how to find out islands in a graph and everything. Once you know enough standard topics and you know how to approach an unknown problems given the techniques in your repository, you should be at a good enough level to start interviewing, so that you can also use that feedback. Because practicing at home and giving an interview are two different things. Because you have a timer, first of all, and they're not only going to look at whether you have the correct solution or not. They're going to look at how you arrive there, how you communicate, how you collaborate and come to the same solution, and how you optimize, and multiple things. So you need practice for that as well. I would say don't wait until you think you're perfect. Start interviewing once you solve enough problems. There's no specific number, however. Now, I'm a self-taught web developer from the construction industry, professional with skills in JS, MongoDB, Express, React, and security with OAuth and Passport.js. That's great. Is it possible to get employed in tech or get volunteering opportunities to master and utilize my skill? Perfect. Yeah. Since you already are from the industry and you have skills, I would assume that you either have work experience or you're a freelance developer. Either of these cases, you have skills in JavaScript, MongoDB, OAuth, Passport.js and all these different things. You have a bunch of skills in your belt. So you have two opportunities. You can either try freelance, or you can try landing jobs in startups, because startups require persons with skills like yours. So build a portfolio. Let's say you already have clients, build a portfolio of the project that you've made. Let's say if you don't have clients, it's fine. Just build your own portfolio and pitch it to the clients. Let's say you're planning for big companies as well. They also need people with your skills. But I would say along with these skills that you have, also practice data structures and algorithms, so that it's a perfect marriage between data structure and algorithms and development if you know both of these things. So you can apply for any startup that you want and apply for any big company that you want. So learn data structure and algorithms on the side as well. But in case you want to do freelance or you want to get a job at a great startup, your skills are more than enough for that. I'm a graduate 2023 and not having any internships in a tech company. I know C, C++, Python. Would like to know what to do now. C, C++, Python. Choose a language. Understand the internal workings of the libraries in that language. Start solving data structures and algorithms. Focus on medium level problems. Focus on solving a bunch of medium level problems. Cover different topics like I mentioned here: linked list, trees, arrays, graphs, DP. Solve a bunch of problems in all these topics. Understand the tech. Solve common interview problems. I told you can follow blind 75, or you can follow, let's say, Sean's list. You can just Google it and you can get the list of problems. 170 common interview problems. You can follow those things, and then practice communication, how to present yourself, have a timer, time yourself, and then keep trying to improve yourself in that area. In a few months, you'll be proficient enough to interview at a particular company. So main focus should be data structure right now and making a couple of good projects. That's what I suggest right now. So Pooja asked, I'm currently working as a full stack developer with over 2.5 years of experience in a product-based startup right now, looking for a switch. How tough would it be for me to switch? How do I apply for companies? I'm getting calls on Naukri, but it's mostly not a pro company. Okay, I understand that. Since you have experience of 2.5 years, you're at the level where you're on the cusp of applying for SD2 roles also. If you have like 3 years experience, you can even try, like really experienced SD1 or like SD2 roles where like you can start applying for. And in that case, I would also say revise system design as well a bit. And I would say, since you're a full stack developer with this many years of experience, apply for big companies as well. Apply on LinkedIn, apply on Naukri, apply on any site that you want, but make your resume, like I mentioned to other people, make your resume really good. Your resume should stand out first. If you're applying for a big company, get a referral and add 2 lines that this is my experience. Since you have 2 years of experience, you should have contributed to the company in some way, but other people won't know that unless you mention it in your resume. Say that in my 2 years, I've improved the structure of this company by X percentage. I brought in X dollars of revenue to my company. I brought in these many clients. I led the development of this feature in this company. Quantify the impact that you have in this company. Make your resume structured enough so that people see that, this person has put effort in their resume. Send a mail to people working at Google, Microsoft, Amazon, all these people, send a message and tell them that, 2 lines about you, send your resume, send the job link. You will get a referral because you have work experience as well. In case you want to get into startup, the only difference of getting a referral for the startup and getting a referral for big companies is that big companies expect data structure algorithms as well. So along with the experience that you have in development, just say, let's practice data structures and algorithms and also add that in your resume. Let's say you've solved 200 problems, add that. I've solved 200 problems on LeetCode on this is my link. Add that as well for big companies. For startups, you'll already get a referral because you have experience. If you just structure your resume in a good way. So get a referral, and then apply, startups will ask you domain specific questions. And the other one, the big companies will ask you data structure oriented questions. So that's it. So you will be able to get calls and convert them if you just streamline the way you apply and the way you have your resume and everything, for sure. How to get any internship in tech companies? The process for an internship is very similar for the process for a job. You make your resume great, you apply, you get a referral if you need. Referral does not guarantee an interview. It just guarantees that your resume gets noticed. And it'll be, if you have like 1,000 resumes, it'll just have extra weightage because someone in the company tells you that, I refer this company with the skills they have. It doesn't guarantee it, but it does give you notice. Then after you get an interview call, like I mentioned, practice data structure, practice a bunch of data structure algorithms, practice, covering communication skills, code quality, and all these different things. And the same process, pretty much the same process, but since you're looking for an internship, it's not as rigorous as a full-time job because an internship is essentially a temporary role. So the problem level that you face will be slightly easier than in an actual full-time role, but everything else remains the same. If we're looking for things, look out for Uber Star program, look out for Google. Google has step internships as well, I think. There are different things. So look for these things that you can optimize and land. So I would suggest that. So Anmol, you have your hand raised.
So could you please give some tips on the Microsoft Engage program which is going to help?
Yeah, so basically, I would say in order to apply for Microsoft Engage or Microsoft Aspire, those are more like, as far as I know, I don't know huge amount of it because I kind of went through a DSA road, but I know people who have gotten through Engage and Aspire, and it's more like a development kind of role where you make projects and you're assigned a mentor and you kind of do it and you present it at the end. So it's a great opportunity if you want to grow your development skills, and you should apply. Let's say you want an internship or you want to convert into a full-time role, apply for that. But there are 2 routes, right? One is a data structure and algorithm route. One is a development route. If you want to go through a development route, there are things like Engage and Aspire from Microsoft where you can apply, build projects, get noticed, and get hired. Google has similar thing called Summer of Code where you're assigned a company, you work with them and you do it and you get paid also. So these are good opportunities. You should apply there and make sure you have a good GitHub profile and make sure that you're well versed in development in order to get through that route. I would suggest that. Have a good, it's not necessary, but have a good open source contribution as well. It always gives you a good name. And I would say that, okay, let me just take a couple of questions more. As a college student, should we study system design, LLD, DBMS. See, low level design, yes, you can study low level design. Let's say that you have to design a taxi system or a railway system. You kind of sometimes, in the rare cases, get asked these questions, class design questions, where they ask you design a parking lot. So, and code it, let's say in C++ or Java, you have to follow the object oriented principles. You have to follow, all these different things in order to design that and solve. But I would say at a fresher level, I have not seen a lot of LLD. Let's say you have 1 year of experience, it makes sense to have LLD questions. High level design, you'll never get that as a fresher. They're not going to ask you rate limiter questions or design Netflix streaming service. That is more for experienced professionals. DBMS, OS, and CN, like I told you, for FANG companies, the weightage is low, but you might get questions there. So it does not hurt to revise these three subjects. But the weightage compared to data structures is extremely low there. So I would suggest instead of LLD and HOD, study DBMS, OS, and CN, and study LLD as well, as in just practice designing classes and following object concepts as well. Yes, Anvesha.
So companies would be coming on campus, and we should consecutively apply off campus too, cause like this period of recession, due to this period of research recession where like companies come but they hire very less students.
Yeah, so I would say that apply, like sit for the companies that come on campus to your college and also simultaneously apply off campus as well. So why leave anything, right? Like apply both cases.
But there are chances, like these companies have 6 months thing, so
Mhm.
like if you apply next 6 months you cannot apply. So like after this period gets over, like after December, should I look for off campus too? Like even if I get placed, still should I look for off campus, like through referrals? Would it give me a better uh chance of getting placed in good companies?
The 6 month that you mentioned, right? I kind of had it in the previous slide. I don't know if I elaborate on it. So the cool down period that you have in company, let's say you apply to Google, you clear the starting technical round, you have the call with the recruiter, you clear the initial elimination round, you go to the on-site rounds. Once you go to the on-site rounds and you fail to land an offer, then you have a 6 month cooldown period. Let's say in Microsoft, that's a good question you raised. Let's say in Microsoft you apply and then you go to the last rounds of Microsoft, you go to the last and you some reason you don't convert it into an offer. Then in Microsoft you cannot apply to the same team within 6 months. Amazon has a similar thing where you cannot apply within 6 months, or it depends. But in Google, let's say the phone screen or the initial elimination round called the phone screen or the initial technical round, if there itself someone gets rejected, I think it's just 3 months or something. But if someone goes to the last on-site rounds, it's a 6 month cooldown. Similar in Microsoft, you cannot apply to the same team. But I would say that let's say you get an offer on campus, but it is not your dream offer. Now, let's say it's a good company, but it's a good to have company. I would still say apply off campus, because what's the harm if you're capable enough to land an off campus opportunity at one of your dream companies? Definitely apply off campus and get that. But on the other hand, if you already dream company on campus, make your try your best to convert there itself.
Okay. And like I'll be graduating in next year, May 2024. Um, so like can I look for full-time internships off campus now, like for asking for referrals for, or like referrals work just within 2-3 months?
I would say that for internship specific roles, some companies do not allow for referrals, but some companies do allow for referrals for interns. So you need to check that out. But since you're graduating in 2024 and right now it's 2023, there are a bunch of companies that actually hire for people graduating in 2024. Even these big companies, let's say I think Uber or something had an opening recently. So check all those out and apply for those companies that are looking for 2024 graduates there. So you can ask, you can get in touch with people from that company and you can apply and try that from now itself.
Okay, so there are already open positions like this, because I was thinking ki, like it would be like within 1-2 months you need to apply. So I was not applying. So I can like actively search for off-campus
You can.
roles.
You can actively search for off-campus roles, and as far as I know, there are a few internships that are probably open even right now in startups and a few product-based companies and even big companies, where they typically say an apprenticeship or an internship, where they say that, you know what, we're looking for students graduating in 2024. They would say that they'll have all your interviews right now, and they would say your start date is 6 months in the future, but your internship process would get over and you would have an offer in hand.
Oh, okay. And the ones in LinkedIn, whatever we see in LinkedIn, that also we need to apply through LinkedIn, or can I put a referral there also, like asking people and getting referrals?
It depends on an internship. If, like I said, a few companies like allow for referrals, a few people, like few companies don't. If you're applying for a company that allows a referral for an internship position, before you apply to that position, find a job ID, find the link, send it to someone, make your resume great, have your skills to that level, and ask them for a referral, because having a referral is a good thing generally.
Okay, and through referral, it's direct interview or online assessment also?
A referral is not a shortcut to get an interview. So specifically mentioned in, let's say you get a referral from a Google engineer or a Microsoft engineer or an Amazon engineer, a referral does not guarantee an interview. A referral just guarantees that your resume has a little more weightage. That's it. Because they have 10,000 of resumes to review, it just makes sure that your resume will get reviewed a little faster. So there's nothing that gives you a shortcut. It's just that your resume should still be on that level. Like it should be a great resume. You should have all the skills. Everything else is the same. It's just that instead of waiting a long time, right? You might have to wait a lesser time in order to get your resume reviewed. That's it. Everything else is the same.
Okay,
You will
okay.
get
Thank you.
an assessment. Yeah, you get an online assessment link and you'll get face-to-face rounds as well. So everything else remains the same.
Acha. Yeah, I got it. It's clear. Thank you so much.
Yeah, perfect. And Akshay, can you ask your question?
Yeah. Hi, sir. Thanks for letting me talk. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, yeah. The next question, which are about to like see that's mine actually. So I want to just ease out for you.
Okay.
So
Yes.
sir, I'm a 23 graduate, and my
Mhm.
college is over. Okay, and like we have not yet received our graduation certificate.
Mhm.
So I was hired in a company called as Betsol. It's in Bangalore.
Right.
I got 7 LPA, and recently they have revoked our offer, sir.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the offers are revoked, and right now, like they said the reason of recession, and they revoked all the offers. And as there is some kind of rules in the college that if I get some 7 LPA, because tier 3, 7 LPA, they'll not let us to like sit for 8.5 like that.
Right, right, right,
They
right.
Yeah, and we were getting a few companies like 27 LPA, 25 LPA, which was like really tough for us. And a few companies which were about to come, they gave the reason of recession, and they are denied coming to our college. So I like now right now I don't have any offer, and and I have already like I have given the interview for almost like 3 companies, and I have went till the HR round, and they're given a very invalid reason of something. I don't know, like I have cleared all the rounds, and like at the HR round they'll be saying that we don't right now, we don't really like need you. If we really need you, like I'll call you like back, like this, something like this. So I didn't get like to even ask for the feedback. I don't know. So like this, and in my third year, at my sixth sem, I have like done an internship, sir, in office internship.
Right.
It was a paid one, so it was
Mhm.
for 7 months. So that is the only experience I have. And right now it's now July. So how I should approach now? Should I like sit on a development? Should I sit on like learning again, and for 6 months preparing and then apply, or keep applying, or what should I do? So like, yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that question. Like you mentioned, some companies right now they do revoke their offers saying that recession, or let's say they don't have enough budget to hire, and they do put candidates on a short list and or wait list, or let's say few startups do that. They put the candidates on the wait list and say that the restaurant right now we don't have enough budget. We'll let you know decision later, even after clarifying all the rounds and everything. So I get your point, but that is really not like it's not your fault at all. It's more like because you cleared all the companies and the companies putting you on hold, you won't, even if you have a gap on your resume for a couple of months or 3 4 5 months, you can justify it saying that, you know what, I had an offer from these companies, but they revoked the offer due to the recession and they gave this reason there. So it's not on you. I would suggest you to continue interviewing, because I wouldn't say take like 6 months off interview. I would not give you that option. I would say that because you're already in the process of interviewing right now and your skills are already up to that level where you're interviewing. I don't know if like your data structure and algorithms or startups, what sort of companies you're interviewing for, but I would suggest practice data structures and algorithms. Try for these big companies as well. And then on the other hand, also practice, continue interviewing on this side. Practice data structure and algorithms, keep revising and keep interviewing. And if you have a gap in your resume that's 3 to 4 months, let's say you take 3 to 4 months to land a Google or Microsoft job, it will not matter in the long run, because you don't even have to justify a lot to the interviewer, because they also know the situation that we're in right now. And if you tell your situation that you had all these offers and they got revoked, and that is the reason why you don't have work experience right now, there's no problem. You said you interned for 7 months, add that in your resume, mention the projects you worked on, and quantify the impact that you face, and you'll face no problem there. So that's what I would suggest. Continue interviewing, continue practicing data structure to interview for big companies like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon.
Sure, sir. So I had just like last two questions, which were like at the managerial round or at the HR round, if they ask me about my previous offer, like if you hold any current offer, should I say that I had an offer and they revoked me, or should I say like nothing? I don't have any offer like that.
You can tell them at the starting itself your reason, because see, let's say you get an interview in 4 months, and you like see the interview process of big companies like Google, Microsoft, Amazon typically take, like Google at least takes a couple of months, let's say, to finish, right? Depends on the schedule, your schedule, the interview schedule. Let's say it takes a month, and until you get the offer, it take another month there. So it's a big like process there. So some companies have big process. Microsoft, for example, and Amazon, they're fast in sense that they'll hold all your interviews if you're available in a couple of days itself. So it depends. I would say an interviewer is expressing interest in asking you, why have you not worked for 6 months right now? You have a valid reason, a genuine reason that you had an offer, but it got revoked. You want to try for bigger companies, develop your skills in this time frame in order to interview for these big companies, because your interest in is working for these companies. So tell the truth, I would suggest. And unless they ask you specific, because if they ask you specifically, you have to anyway tell the truth. You can't say that, you know what, like, it's better because you have a genuine reason for not like working for these months. So I would say tell the truth if they ask you. But interviewers generally ask this question: do you hold another offer? In the offer negotiations, recruiter asks you. For example, like I mentioned, someone has an offer from Amazon and they have a competing offer from, let's say, Google. You can hold the Google offer, tell the Amazon recruiter that, you know, I hold an offer from Google, they're giving me this many stocks, this much salary. Can you match that offer? So at that stage is kind of where they ask you. Otherwise, no one will normally ask you, do you hold another offer?
Okay, that's better. So, and like the main thing is like if I want to dedicate some time, like the next 4 or 5 months for my preparation, I should I go for CP, like start CP, because I was initially this kind of like analytics domain person. So like I was working on data analytics, data engineering, that kind of work. So development I have not done so much. So if I should I do only do lead code, GFG, these things, or CP also should I make it like so strong or something?
Right. So see, if you're in, see, I'm a competitive coder, but I would still suggest that if you're interested in competitive coding, for sure try competitive coding. But from the point of view of cracking interviews, competitive coding is only necessary in somewhat aspect for the online assessment, and in company specific. Like Codegon type contests, or let's say really hard questions, rarely, let's say Cisco or something, sometimes they ask hard questions. In the online assessment stage, sometimes CP is needed. Otherwise, you only need strong data structure and algorithm skills in order to get an interview. If you're interested in CP, I would suggest you do that, but focus on building like 1 to 2 good projects. Focus on getting your data structure and algorithm level so that you can solve medium and some hard questions by yourself. And you know every technique. You know, when you look at a linked list, you know that it's 1 of 4 things. You know, it's either in-place reversal of nodes, or you know, it's either the K group reversal, or it's, you know, the head and tail approach. You know, all the different topics, data structure that you can apply on an unknown problem. Focus on data structures mainly. Do CP on the side if you want to, if you're interested in it. But I would say don't go too deep into CP unless you're fully interested in it, because you're not going to see questions on segment trees that often, for example, in interviews of data structures, but you will see that often in CP, for example. So have that balance.
Okay, so on an assessment, a basic level of CP is enough, sir, right?
I would say, yeah, basic to medium level. Because if you do data structure and algorithms, right, I would say that when you do data structure and algorithms, you do cover a lot of different topics in CP as well. You don't go into depth, but you know arrays, you know linked lists. In CP, you don't have a focus on data structure and algorithms. You have a focus on techniques more. In data structured algorithms, you have a set of topics that you have arrays, you have trees. You know trees have these traversals. You know graph. You have to know articulation points or bridges, or you need how to find out islands, and you have a certain algorithm. You know Dijkstra's, crinkles or these things. You have a set of things that you need to learn. So learn those things first, and then I would say for the specific thing, practice a bit of CP. So that'll be good. So you'll anyway be able to solve medium problems, in my opinion, if you like do data structure algorithms as well. Rare case, you might get a really hard OA problem in CP, but in that, for example, right now, the famous one was that Infosys hosted their, I think Infosys or one company hosted their test, and they had a really hard CP problem. But that is kind of a rare situation. So it's not a common situation. Yeah, and in face-to-face interviews, it's data structure algorithms 90%. So you need to be anyway thorough in that. So focus more on that.
So, last question, sir. Like, what are the aspects of the project section or the project of the development? I really don't know. So, development, when it comes to development, what are the aspects or the factors that really considerable for a recruiter to like shortlist or even like forward my resume to the next round or like to the managerial round, sir?
For an interviewer, when they look at your resume, they need to kind of differentiate you from the other candidates. So if you're asking specifically with respect to projects, have a project that is not copied from any source, host your project on GitHub, host your project on the cloud, use Heroku or any paid service, host it, add a link to your project, have a genuine idea and translate that into code, mention the framework that you're using, and mention one, two lines about their project. So most people, they do not include links to their project, and they do not host it on GitHub. They do not host it on the cloud. When you do these minute things, right, it kind of improves your resume in that project aspect as well. And most people, they just, for example, you look at a random person's resume, they'll just be like Netflix clone using React. You can find thousands of that online. So you did not do any effort to modify it according to your way. Even if you want that idea, right, modify it and make it your own idea. Have an idea translated into code. Make sure that it's not something that you just Google and you find thousands of it there. So if you make a little bit effort in that aspect, your resume stands out. If you solve let's say 200 problems in lead code, in it and add your link there. You said you do CP sometimes as well. Let's say you have a profile on CodeChef or Codeforces, add that in your resume and say that, this is my profile. So these minute things kind of elevate your resume. Have a structure using latex or overleaf that I mentioned in the resources here as well. So these kind of, make it better, even to get a referral and for the resume to get shortlisted for the next round. And I would also suggest everyone that when you apply through the careers page, let's say you don't have a referral, you just apply to the careers page, they generally have an automated scanner. They do ATS scanning there. So you're applying for a web development kind of role. Make sure if you have those skills to add that in your resume, those kind of skills at the top so that they do get scanned and your resume gets shortlisted. That's also one other tip that I would give.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for the information.
Yeah,
Very
welcome.
informative.
Yeah. Yes, Anvesha. Your hand was raised. Okay, let me just continue. Okay, sorry. Yes.
Which are, best way to apply or search for these internships or like SD jobs, like going to their career site and then searching, it's very time consuming, and also we don't get it. There are not much open positions as a friend.
That's true. Applying through the careers page, finding roles are hard. I would say have a list of dream companies that you want to apply for. Let's say that Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Uber, let's say random food companies. Have they shortlisted and look for there's few videos that you can find of when off-campus opportunities open. There are certain months where a lot of companies start hiring. Amazon hires pretty much throughout the year. So you will find SD positions hiring even right now. Some companies have a specific window where they hire. So find that window and look for opportunities in that area, or keep checking frequently. I know it's hard to find it, but you need to do that effort in order to find relevant opportunities. You can look at other sites where I don't remember the site right now, but there's this one site that aggregates, all the interview opportunities from different sites, and I'll try to find it. But you can just Google for those things as well. But ideally, if you're looking for a dream job in these companies, have them bookmarked and keep regularly checking them out. If you're looking for internships, however, like I mentioned, Microsoft has Aspire and Engage, Google has Step, and then Uber has Star. And these flagship programs of these companies, right? Every year, there are a few months where they host these. So like research into the companies and find those ones. So I would just suggest that. It is hard, but you have to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome. I'm in third year, don't know about CP, and I don't have any projects. Satyamas, what should I do? You don't necessarily need to be a professional competitive coder in order to crack interviews. Like I mentioned, competitive coding, kind of the main area it can help is if you get a hard problem in an online assessment. Remaining problem, 90% of them will be on data structures and algorithms. I'm saying this as a competitive coder myself. I do competitive coding for fun because I enjoy it. But as an advice to give students who are preparing, I would say you first need to focus mainly on data structures and algorithms and get the foundation strong, because data structures and algorithms are about topics and algorithms, and CP is more about techniques that you solve. So you will not get a really advanced 3D segment tree in an interview. However, segment trees and square root decompositions are fairly common topics in competitive coding. Try to find that differentiation. Don't go too deep into CP. Practice, get your foundations fixed first. Get your data structure and algorithm strong. Make a couple of projects in either web development, machine learning, or AI, or app development, whatever you choose. Make a good project on it, and also focus on lead code and data structure and algorithm first. And then on the side, do CP as well. No one's stopping you from following CP if you genuinely enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot, so I'd suggest you to do that. Sir, you said start interviewing. I wanted to ask where to get the interview. First, companies ask for aptly, and then shortlisting, and then only interview. If let's say companies like Deloitte, for example, that I interviewed for, those type of companies, they do ask for aptitude because they're business related companies. Let's say big four companies, Deloitte, KPMG, PwC, these type of companies, they have an apti round, and then they shortlist and an interview call. If you're applying on campus, like I told you, Microsoft, for example, will give you a pen and paper round where you have to write code there. Other companies, if they come off campus, they might have a online hiring test, SAP Labs, or let's say Google or Microsoft or Amazon, they can have an online assessment there itself in the campus itself and do it. Off campus, you will have an online assessment after resume shortlisting on Codility, HackerEarth, or HackerRank, or these platforms, and then you will get moved on to the face-to-face rounds. So I would say that make your resume strong, get a referral, get your skills to that level. I would say one thing, no matter what tier you're from, no matter what college you're from, if your skills are at that level, no one will deny you the opportunity to interview. You should be confident enough in your skills to that level, and anyone can do it. That's what my opinion is. So Anil asked, can I apply for senior positions after internship? I have project-based and deserve it. No. See, if you're a fresher and you just have certain projects, you cannot apply for, let's say, a senior engineer role. A senior software developer requires you to have around 6 to 10 years of experience. If you say senior position, quantify that. Are you asking for an SD1, SD2? If you're straight out of college, the roles that you apply for are limited to software engineer 1. They're limited to that, because without relevant work experience, a good company will not directly push you to SD2, because being an SD2 means you lead a particular feature crew in your team, and you know enough of system design, and you have a proven track record of delivering things in production. Making projects on your own can develop skills, but unless you put that in application in a work environment, they will not give you a senior position. So if you were a recruiter, what would be the most important things you would be looking for in a fresher or their resume? If I was a recruiter, I would look for some quantifiable impact that a candidate has done in their project or their team. I would say if they have links to their projects, I would check them out. I would check out if the resume is structured properly, if it has unnecessary information or is properly structured. I would also check out, let's say they have links to Lead Code, CodeChef, or whatever. I would check their profile out. Some people do this thing where I check someone's profile there, and on Lead Code, they have like 100% accuracy, 600 problems. That is an unbelievable thing, but no one can really achieve. So you need to not copy paste your solution, because recruiters are not dumb. They will check your resume out and they will click on the links. So I would say try genuinely. And I would also check. I would check 1 or 2 solutions that the candidate has coded. I would check if I was a recruiter, and many recruiters don't do this, but I would also check the solutions, 1 or 2 solutions. Or let's say if you have a link to Lead Code Coach, I would check them out to see that, have you tried and solved that problem? So I would also advise everyone to try. It's fine if you take 2-3 wrong answers. The accuracy metric on Lead Code or CodeChef is not that important. What's important is you learn and you keep trying. So rather than copy pasting what some people do, if you genuinely try, it will be reflected in your profile. So that's that. I would suggest that. And thanks, Pooja. And Rohit says, I'm a second year student pursuing my BTech. I know basic Python, basics of ML, and have a vast experience on Linux and distros. I want to get a job in 3 years in Mang as an AI dev. So what should I do? If you want to land a job at Mang as an AI developer, you're starting, like, your level playing field is same. You need to be good at data structures and algorithms. Along with that, you also need to be good at your domain specific knowledge. You need to also know stuff like, uh, you need to know machine learning algorithms. You need to know, like, what is the benefit of a support vector machine, let's say, for example. Why do you use an SVM as opposed to a linear regression model? You should know things like this. You should have domain specific knowledge along with data structure knowledge. So you have 3 years. 3 years is a lot of time to gain all the knowledge that you need, both in machine learning and AI, and also in data structure. You can become an expert in, like, very proficient in both these areas. And is it possible to get an internship at MIT on AI ML being a student from Kolkata, India? Internship at MIT in AI ML is possible, and you can get it even being from India, but you need to have a bunch of research publications. You need to prove domain specific knowledge. You need to prove, if anyone wants to try out machine learning, I would suggest Kaggle. Go participate in competitions on Kaggle. These companies like Google and Microsoft and all these big companies, they host their machine learning and image recognition contests there. Look at other data scientists in the field and other machine learning engineers, how they solve those problems. For example, you need to know things like XGBoost. And these things are very common in the machine learning competition space. Check those things out, research a lot, find an area you're interested in, practice a lot of data structures, and you can get an internship wherever you want. Thanks, Anvesha. And I'm a UI UX designer from Nigeria. My question is, how can I get jobs, such an entry role or internship? It's been really hard. I would say, since you're a UI UX designer, have a portfolio on Behance or Figma. And if you have a good portfolio, right, on Behance.net, or you have a Figma, prototype ready that you can just showcase to your recruiters that this is my portfolio. The UI UX designers that I know, they kind of host their own site where they display the portfolios that they have. So it kind of gives you a really good starting point where instead of having a PDF resume that developers have, you can show your creativity in the form of a website or your portfolio itself. I would say that data structure and algorithms is not that important as a UI UX designer in case you're applying for startups. You can directly, based on the projects that you build and clients that you have, you can get hired there. I know it's hard right now, but you should keep applying and you will get there. I don't know what exactly the problem that you're facing to get entry-level roles. What are the companies saying? Are you getting a call back? So I don't really know more context on that. If you can give me more details, I can give you a pointed answer. But I would just suggest have a good portfolio on Behance or Figma. Keep applying to companies, ask for referrals and share them your portfolio, get creative with it, and you will get a good job for sure. Now, being a CS student, can I join CDSE course for best offer? What is CDSE? Is it computational data analytics or something? Currently, I have a 3.3 LPA package from Tech Mahindra. That's great. But what exactly is CDSE? Can you just tell me? I'm not aware of that. If it's data analytics, I mean, sure, you can join in that course as well. But unless I know more specifics about this course, because this acronym can mean multiple things, so I'm a little bit confused. CDSE is a government-sponsored diploma. Okay, for 6 months. Sure, you can join it, but I would say, since you're starting out, since you're starting out and you already have a package from a company like Tech Mahindra, you have two choices. If you want to gain experience, right? Not many people get an opportunity to work with Government of India. So if you have a government-sponsored diploma there for 6 months to gain experience, go for that. It depends whether you want to pursue knowledge in a particular field more as opposed to money right now. Depends on your personal situation. If you feel like money is important to you right now, industry experience, go for the Tech Mahindra job or apply for more companies and get others as well. Whatever company you like, join. Tech Mahindra is a great company as well. So you can join anything that you want. Or you want to grow your skills right now in a particular domain, go for that. It depends on your personal situation. I cannot tell you which to choose. I have a portfolio that I used to showcase my works as UI. That's great. Since you already have a portfolio on Behance or Figma, I've been getting response to company I've been applying to, but my works are great, but they would like to move on to other applicants. Okay, then in that case, I think we need to follow up with the company and ask them since they give you feedback, right, ask them what could you have done better in order to land it. Or let's say that ask for pointed feedback. Some recruiters, they do share specific feedback, you know what, this area could have been better, or this elements could have been structured differently. So ask for pointed feedback in that area. Otherwise, I would say maybe get a referral, ask for a referral, share your portfolio before you apply. Share your portfolio on LinkedIn with someone already working at that company. Have a discussion with them, and if they like your like portfolio, a referral, you go and apply, and then you go on to the next stage. Because directly applying where 1,000 people apply, it's kind of hard to get shortlisted in that case. For example, multiple people, let's say on Amazon itself, right? Thousands of people apply, they get the OA link, but even after solving all the problems, they still don't get shortlisted sometimes because there's just like there's no shortage of applicants there. So getting a referral will also kind of help in that case, and getting more pointed feedback about why they would like to move on with other applicants despite finding your work great. So we need to work on that aspect, and I'm sure that you'll get a great job there itself. Apply for more companies, apply for bigger companies. I'm currently learning collections in Java, my Java full stack journey. Where should I start DSA? When should I start DSA and lead code? Start now. So since you're already learning collections in Java, you're learning these different things like array list. You're learning different things like collections there. So just start solving lead code right now. There's no perfect time to start, and there's no perfect time to get amazing at it. You can start directly right now itself. I would suggest you to start right now, because there's no prerequisite. You just need to know a language and you can learn on the way. So I'd suggest you to start right now. And I'll just go on with the common questions. I mean, I covered some of them right now. I mean, I covered most of them right now, I think. Like I kind of compiled a list of common questions. I think everyone already covered these. So can you move to the next slide? I lost my co-host access when I just joined back. Yeah, thank you. So basically, I'll just give you a brief of the one-on-one mentorship that I'm hosting here. Mainly, most people have this problem of consistency. So having a one-on-one mentorship basically means that every 2 days, you'll get a follow-up from me. Let's say I give you a certain task to solve. I'll give you a few problems based on what you want to target. We'll make a plan for you that's personalized, that's tailored for you to land your job. And I can follow up with you every 2 days, for example, where I can tell you that, you know what, these are the things that you need to focus on. We can get on a call and solve DSA problems and debug the solutions together. And the accountability part for you and me is maintained in that case. So this is how one-on-one mentorship can help on Preplace. And Priya asks how to apply logic while solving programming problems. While solving programming problems, you have an unknown problem, right? First, understand what the constraints of that problem. Let's say if your n is up to 10 to the power of 6, you know that an n, O of n or O of n log n approach will work. Try to identify the complexity of the problem. Try to identify what data structure you're going to use in order to solve the problem. Try to identify that. Then what you can do is try to think in your head. If it's a sorted array there, will binary search work? If it's a linked list, should I use the fast and a slow pointer? If it's a tree, should I use an in-order traversal? If you practice enough problems, you'll kind of get an overall idea of the patterns that you need to use to solve these common problems. So keep practicing over and over again, and you will get how to apply logic to those problems for sure. That's what I would suggest. Like at the starting, it will be hard. Sometimes you have to, look at the solutions and stuff if you don't get an idea for long, but keep at it and you will get it. Perfect. And now I'll just go to the next slide. This is the overview of the one-on-one mentorship that I can provide on Preplaced. So basically, every candidate is different in the sense that you guys have a particular company you want to apply for, you have a time frame that you want to apply for, and you have certain expectations. Let's say some person is weak at dynamic programming, some person already knows data structures, some person, like I told you, is a UI UX designer, and all of these are different use cases, and one plan cannot be the same for everyone. For example, the path to becoming an UX designer versus the path to become a developer are completely different. If you want to land a job in a finance domain, it's also a different path. So based on your requirements, I can give you a personalized mentorship of what you need to apply, what you need to practice there. Basically, if you want certain, let's say, classes on DP, or we want to debug, we can do that as well, solve a few problems together, and I can give you a few assignments so that you can upskill yourself. And since there are timely follow-ups, like I mentioned, consistency is kind of maintained. And also, at the end, I will guide you on how to apply for off-campus internships or placements as well. So this is how, like, I can keep you accountable, and we both can, work towards achieving your goal. I would say that if you want a free trial session with me for 30-40 minutes where you can discuss in detail, I know this was a group session, so I cannot go very in depth on your particular issue that you have. So if you book a trial session with me, it's a free trial session where 30-40 minutes we can discuss about your problem and how exactly we can, you can just scan this QR code and book it, and where we can go from there. Vikas asked how to get an off-campus placement if you have knowledge of DSA and web dev. If you already have good knowledge of DSA, you can solve medium hard problems. You already have a good knowledge of web dev. Make your resume great. Start applying to companies. Start getting referrals. Just apply. Like at this point, if you already have the sufficient knowledge, why wait? Start applying and make your resume great. Practice communication and do mock interviews. How to approach companies, where to apply. One way is get a rep. Before you apply to companies, send your resume, which is already tailored and it's great. You make a great resume, send it to people on LinkedIn working company. Then what you do is you finish your application process. That is one way. Get a referral. Apply directly on the company portal, but for that you need to have a standout resume. Third, Uber. I told you certain companies have their certain flagship programs: Uber Star, Microsoft Engage, Google Step. Look for those options and apply. Or there are a few months where like certain companies hire. So try to identify off-campus opportunities, which months which companies hire, approach them on that time, send them the link, send the recruiter. You can directly get in touch with either a recruiter of that company or an engineer. If it's a recruiter, it's better because they directly, posted the job. So they'll be able to expedite the process faster. If it's an engineer, you can get a referral faster. So just approach them. And these are like the 2-3 ways you can apply there. So any other questions? So I'll just take, you guys can unmute your mic and ask your questions. Thanks, Shiksha. And you guys can unmute your questions or put your questions in the chat, and yeah. Okay, if there are no other questions, it's been great interacting with you all, and have a great day. Bye, everyone. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Atharva. It was a great session. It was very interactive. A lot of people were able to get value out of you. Everybody, we have shared a link to book one-on-one trial session with Atharva at Preplace. So you can just go ahead with that link and book a free trial session to understand how we can help you out in getting a job or getting into your target goals, target companies. Okay. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Atharva, for such a wonderful session.
Perfect. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Yeah. Bye. Bye, everyone.